Pete. Appreciate that. Yeah, it does look a bit blurry, and I'm not really sure why, to be honest, guys. Give me a second here while I fiddle around here with this. All right, that looks a little bit better, I think. Just want to make sure we have YouTube online, guys, because I don't see it on my side. Give me 1 second. Okay, looks like we're live on YouTube as well. Yes, we are. Okay, so not a bad start today. We're only 4 minutes late. Sometimes those technical issues pop in at the wrong time. So we have a schedule we follow here, guys. If you haven't joined us before, I go over some crypto news that was curated over the last week on Reddit, Telegram, and other channels that we have our group sitting in. And then I go over some Reddit questions, same thing, curated over the last week. And then we do our live Q&A after a quick update session. So I'm going to jump right into the first topic of the day here on my list for news. Major cryptocurrencies now tradable on Yahoo Finance through APIs of multiple brokers. So some good news there. Obviously, Yahoo Finance pretty much covers, I don't know how many thousands of different tradable assets. The fact that they've brought in assets that were probably tradable on those multiple brokers for quite some time just means they added in a few new assets, which is something they probably do on a regular basis, which I know they do on a regular basis. So they brought in crypto, good. Probably because brokers have been asked them to do so, or maybe clients have, especially just for pricing. Not sure of the trade volumes that actually happen. Not sure if those trade volumes happen on actual deliverable products or it's synthetic products. So I'm not sure the exact, I can't really measure the magnitude of what's happening on the market, but the fact that they're bringing these in, again, all this stuff means that we're getting closer to a more mainstream market, and the more mainstream market is better for everybody, regardless of what you do in this market, whether you're a peanut salesman on the blockchain or you're creating an exchange. More people that are getting in to crypto, the more liquidity that comes into the market is a good thing for everybody. Number 2 on the list, 25% of all smart contracts contain critical bugs. Number seems kind of low to me. I think when you see this, when there's something controversial in the news, whether it be finance related, whether it be politically related, what you'll find is that people take news that, generally speaking, isn't really news, and they do a little clickbait and make it news. So 25% of smart contracts containing critical bugs. I would ask how many actual just software code contains bugs. I bet you it's close to 25%. I don't see that as high. I mean, the number's high, saying that there's critical bugs in 25% of every single smart contract sounds like a high number, but doesn't seem that high to me. I've seen some of these smart contracts aren't that smart yet, so the code behind it is not all that complex for the most part. So yeah, I don't see this as too much of a news story, though. From a negative aspect, for people that are always trolling for negative aspects on crypto, like your grandpa who says that money needs to be paper and in your wallet. He's going to find this and say, "See, I told you so. This is a bad move. Look at all these critical bugs." But I'm sure we could do a little research and probably find that out of most script or scriptings that are made for, let's say, back office password-driven access to websites, there's probably 25% of those with critical bugs too. That's just the software world, right? So I think generally speaking, most media is still a little negative on crypto, but most of the public is still negative on crypto, which means that when the media releases what looks like a negative story, when they take a bit of data that probably is the same across multiple industries and they post it as negative, they probably get more readers. So again, I wouldn't read too much into this, other than the fact that software in general, and smart contracts are included, let's say, in software or just programming in general, somebody probably needs to do a better job when they audit these things. And we probably need better auditors in the crypto space. There's a few companies that do smart contract audits. There probably needs to be more. And I think these still are new. They're still new. Smart contracts are new, period. They're not an old product. They're not something that's been around for 20 years. So the fact that we're not 100% accurate in finding bugs doesn't really surprise me. Number 3, EU to hold a meeting next week about crypto, money laundering, terrorism financing, ICO, consumer protection, more regulations coming. Of course, there's more regulations coming. We have none. I mean, so if we said that no more were coming, well, we don't have any. So that means there's nothing. So yes, there's definitely more coming. I think we've talked about this before, but the general way that regulators work, and they've been following their let's say MO quite to the T for the past months, is that initially they do nothing, then they come out with a little bit of guidance, and it's usually negative. Especially when they don't want to regulate something, or they're not sure if it's a fad or if it's actually going to be something that they actually need to look at to regulate. Then as they're saying, let's say, negative things about the market, or they're trying to dispel, or they're trying to push out, let's say, consumer protection guidelines about how it may be a scam or how people need to protect themselves, they're busily kind of doing analysis to see if they actually need to move the next step. Next step is usually litigation, and litigation leading to precedent from judicial, and then once they have precedent from a judge on the judicial side, they take that and they roll that into regulation. So the fact that what I can say is the fact that they're holding meetings, and that some of these meetings are public, and they're inviting people not only from the industry but also from other industries to give comments, is a good thing. They need to listen to us, and when I say us, I don't mean crypto as a whole. I mean people in crypto that come from a background that isn't crypto related, that's finance related, that understand both sides of the coin, pun intended, and they're able to then go in there and give advice or guidance to the regulator, so the regulator can do their job. So yes, definitely more regulations are coming. We need them. Unfortunately, human nature is what it is. If you don't provide rules, even good people do bad things. So if we don't provide guidelines and strict guidelines and frameworks that specifically state how these markets should be operated, they will be operated, at least in some percentage, incorrectly, and that is not going to help anyone. Trust me, the fact that you have an arbitrage situation right now between countries where people are making 10, 15, 20% based on arbitrage means we have a very immature market. It's less immature than it was because those arbitrage opportunities were in the thousands. And if you meet a crypto trader who talks about arbitrage, ask him what he's going to do in 2 years when there isn't any arbitrage opportunities, and see what he says. But the fact that those things exist means that people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. There's no price discovery. People aren't putting in the time and the effort to create systems that protect the consumer, protect themselves, and overall protect the market and help it grow. And regulation is the only thing that's going to make them do that, unfortunately. Number 4 on my list of 10, Apple requests that Coinbase wallet remove crypto collectible DApp, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, not allowed for in-app purchases. Well, Apple's conservative. I don't think anybody that's read any of these type of news stories would think that they're not. I mean, they're definitely not conservative on certain parts of their business model, but when it comes to their app store and especially when it's something that may delve into a regulated environment, Apple spends, I don't know how many millions and millions and millions of dollars, euros, pounds, and shillings every year on legal. They don't want to spend more if they don't have to. So I understand from a commercial aspect, from a risk mitigation, I fully understand Apple. And if I was on the Apple board, I would probably tell them to do the same thing. Not because I'm against innovation or I don't want to see these things happen, but because unless we have a clear legal precedent, I don't want to touch it. So if I was Apple. So the fact that they're not allowing these collectible things, eventually they probably will be allowed, just like everything else. Apple wasn't really allowing any crypto apps in the beginning, and now they've started to, our app is there. So they've started to allow certain apps. So, again, there just needs to be, we go back to Article 3. We go back to Article 3. More regulation is needed because big companies that have high legal expenses, that do not want higher legal expenses, are always going to wait until there's some type of precedent. That precedent doesn't necessarily need to come from regulators. It can come from the legislative branch. It can come from the judicial. It can come from, they can just have maybe other companies that start doing it and get legal opinions, but it has to come from somewhere. And regulation is a good place for it to start. Number 5 on the list of 10, crypto exchange Huobi is seeking to acquire public firm in $77 million deal. I'm going to actually open this one up because I'm not sure what firm it is. I mentioned this before, but a lot of times I don't actually read these before I comment on them. And that may sound crazy, but it's because either I've seen the story somewhere else, or I don't even need to look at the story because I know exactly what it's going to say. Because unfortunately, just looking at a headline, normally I can pretty much devise what the media is thinking behind it, because I've read a lot of stories or similar stories over the last years. So it looks like they're trying. So Pantronics Holdings. Let's see. Public listed on Hong Kong Exchange. Okay, so it's a common tactic in every industry. In that, let's put it this way: if you want to become a publicly traded company and you're operating a business that might be difficult to get approval to become a publicly traded entity, you just buy a publicly traded entity, even if it has nothing to do with what you're doing. For instance, maybe you're a restaurant and you want to go public, and you buy a lawnmower business that's public. You're already public. You basically merge the two businesses. You change the ticker symbol. You're off and running. It's not that simple, but let's say it's less complex than going through the process yourself. So, good job for Huobi. It's a normal tactic that's used. I think if the crypto industry was followed by more business savvy, let's say the percentage of people in crypto were of a more business savvy nature, you wouldn't see these headlines. Why? Because who cares? Not that who cares, but from a standpoint, everybody knows this is already done. Companies and other industries do this all the time to be able to get listed on public exchanges and become a publicly listed company. So it's nothing new. The fact that it makes headlines is because most people in the crypto space aren't from the business or finance sector. So these type of stories they never read before, because if there was a story, in their local news about how some local dairy farmer bought out, a car distribution business to get his milk on a publicly traded, nobody would read it because they didn't care. But the fact that it's involved in crypto now, they're reading it. So it shows that players in this space, and I actually had a conversation with the head of legal at Huobi, head of legal and compliance in their UK office, great guy. And we discussed what we're doing in business, how we can possibly work together in the future. There's a lot of different cross points where I think we may be able to actually do that. We'll probably meet sometime in the near future. So it just shows that there are some players in this industry that right now are making moves like they would in any other industry, and that should make everybody happy to a certain extent, because it means that the industry itself is maturing. And we need a mature industry. We can't go up. The speed bumps we are going to hit, and we've already hit speed bumps at industry as a whole, right? There's already been speed bumps. There's been small regulatory speed bumps. There's been speed bumps with ETFs and blah, 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 whatever. There's been speed bumps along the way. There's been technology speed bumps, adoption speed bumps. The speed bumps, however, the speed mountains, the speed ginormous mountains we're going to hit moving through the regulatory and then moving into mass adoption are going to be huge. And there's no way we can tackle them if we don't start to bring a more mature crowd into a more mature space into this, let's say, crypto realm. It has to happen, and that shows that it's happening. So whether merger and acquisitions, some people can, there are people that are going to be against it and say that it's unethical. I don't know, unethical or whatever. I don't know what the argument would be off the top of my head, but there are people that are going to be against that. And I'm not saying that everything from traditional finance and traditional industry is going to be good for blockchain and crypto. But when you look at mature industries like the pharma industry, like the healthcare industry, again, I'm not saying they're well run. When I say mature, that doesn't necessarily mean I think they're being run like they should be. It just means that they've been around a long time, and that they have not might be the right word, but they have regulation around them. They have ring fences around them. They have risk mitigation factor. Everything is built in. There's protocols. There's ways to follow. There's clear guidelines, etc. Number 6 on my list of 10, hacker group Lazarus breached an Asian crypto exchange via Mac malware. Yep, just another breach at another crypto exchange, I guess, right? If you have a list, I guess you just write it on the list. I mean, I don't know what number that would be. Probably like 6,847 as of today. I've talked about this before, and sometimes people misconstrue what I'm trying to say. I think, when you deal in anything online, when you deal in anything nowadays, because almost everything's online, even if, whatever, everything's IoT now, everything's connected to something. Your refrigerator can tell your stove that it needs to be cleaned. I mean, I don't know. your sink tells you when when you need to wash your dishes, whatever. Everything nowadays is starting to be connected via some type of Internet of Things connectivity. So security is important, and it's going to be important forever. It never will stop being important. But you have to understand that a lot of these news stories are pushed out like this, again, because negativity sells, and second, because people tend to really overblow the need for specific types or what security actually needed. I think they make people try to believe that the security that's required to make sure that these things don't happen is so eloquently difficult, and you need like 645 people in a basement somewhere with no natural light that like dig into paperwork and computer code all night just to figure out. It's not. A lot of it comes down to protocols. A lot of it comes down to very simple protocols that need to be followed. And again, it comes to maturity, because mature companies, as you grow, it becomes more difficult. Why? Because you're hiring lots of people. When you hire lots of people, for those protocols to be followed, it becomes difficult. When you have 10 people, one person, well, it's really easy to follow protocols. When you have 10, it's not that difficult. When you have 100, it's still kind of not that difficult, but it gets more difficult. When you have 10,000, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to make sure they're followed. As businesses grow, it becomes more difficult, but it's still all about protocols. If you have a business that follows protocols, and rather simple protocols, but you can make sure that people follow them and there's a way to track it, these type of things tend to not happen so much. Because at the end of the day, if your employees walk outside and find a shiny flash drive outside in their parking lot, and they plug it into their laptop, then you probably just got hacked. But not because somebody really had to do all kinds of nefarious things to get into your system. It's just because no one bothered to tell the person, if you find a flash drive in the outside of your office place, don't plug it into your business notebook. I mean, I don't want to. Some things I say are sarcastic, so please take them with that grain of salt. But I'm not really, it is partially true here. We shouldn't overblow. We shouldn't underestimate what we need to do for security, but we also shouldn't think that the way to solve this problem is so overly complex, because at the end of the day, it's not. It just means that you need to protect. When you're holding other people's assets, you need to protect them, period. SEC to review decision, number 7 on the list of 10. SEC to review decision rejecting Bitcoin ETFs. We talked about this, I think, last week. I think they called to the pressure a bit here. There's a lot of people, and I think some of those lots of people don't really understand what will happen to the market when an ETF is launched, or what kind of effect it may have. But they had a lot of pressure, a lot of backlash, but probably a lot of family offices, a lot of smaller institutional investors that just want to get in and want to be able to sell this and churn it down to their client base and make a bunch of money, getting people that are foaming at the mouth to get into crypto, and then bringing them into different aggregated investments, the top 10 cryptos. Like, my 7-year-old daughter could go to CoinMarketCap and go, let's just put money in all these. I mean, that's. But anyway, there's a lot of people that want to get into this market, and there's a lot of salesmen on the institutional side that want to get their clients in. So I'm sure they got a lot of backlash. I don't generally think they're going to probably change their decision. I think they're just going to take the time to come back with a much more thorough examination, so that people more understand. Look, the clear point from the SEC, the reason why they weren't ready to approve an ETF, is because of the volatility and the security volatility and concerns, and the liquidity concerns inside, and those haven't been solved. No matter what they write, no matter what the ETF writes in their white paper, or green paper, yellow paper, 1-page or 2-page or 12-page or whatever, they haven't solved those concerns. So I don't see the SEC moving on their decision. Maybe they do some type of initial pre-authorization for a test or something like that, but I doubt they're going to change their minds, at least right now, because most of the major things they mentioned haven't been addressed. Number 8 on the list of 10, India's central bank is worried that its crypto crackdown may backfire. They should be. I think I mentioned this before. I think a lot of countries, and actually when India came out with this, I think it wasn't an AMA, it could have been on Telegram, but I think it was AMA. I mentioned the fact that the worst thing, if you think that crypto is like a gateway into every criminal enterprise in the world, the worst thing you can do is not regulate it, because you're just allowing them to do it. It's stupid. It's a very stupid move. And if I sat down with the Indian Central Bank, I would tell them it was stupid. It's stupid because It's just like telling your small child that you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. What do you think they're going to do when you walk out of the room? They're going to do it. If you want to stop, you allow, you analyze, you find out what you need to do to mitigate risks, and you do it. That's called regulation. That's called legislation and rules. When you create no rule, and the only rule is you just simply can't do it, people will do it, because just saying you can't do it doesn't stop people from having the ability to do it. So yes, it will backfire 100%. And at the end of the day, they will either be forced to regulate, which is also a bad thing, because when regulators are forced, they don't really do what's necessary. They just kind of go ad hoc and do something quick and dirty, and it ends up not working. Number 9 on a list of 10, Terra stablecoin project wins backing from major crypto exchanges. Well, I think everybody that's been here before, and if you haven't been before, you get my vision on a stablecoin. I don't like them. I think they're a band-aid solution. If there was a fiat on-ramps and off-ramps in this market like there should be, there'd be almost virtually no need for a stablecoin. Remember that it's illegal in most first world countries, in most of the world, to create your own currency. Now, you can create a private currency in almost every one of those countries. Even in the US, there's private currencies right now. There's a private currency in Vermont. There's a private currency in a few other states, I think Tennessee, in small towns, that they use, and they peg it to the dollar, and it's called like this is a worthless piece of paper currency or whatever. And they use it in their town. They give discounts. The local shops accept it. Great. But that's because it's limited. When you create something like a stable coin and you allow multiple exchanges to use it, at some point you fall under the classification that's not a private currency, which can make it illegal. Not only that, but the reason why this whole decentralized app layer on a protocol to create a monetization effect on top of a decentralized protocol was created was to have a trustless system, right? Now what you're doing, you wanted to move away from fiat because you don't trust the government who issues it. But now you want to trust a third party to back a token that they created by the same fiat currency you didn't trust, issued by the government you hate. I mean, if there was a more clear definition of idiocy, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't make any sense from any side. I understand why they do it, but no. I'd rather solve the fiat issue. You solve the fiat on-ramp issue, stablecoins. For most use cases of stablecoins, no longer needed. Now, there is some internal, like for instance, if we were to create the Euro token because we were waiting on EMI licensing and we wanted to take Euro deposits to our Euro bank accounts and be able to have a wallet for these clients. We didn't yet have the permission to have e-money wallets. Well, yeah, we could create a Euro token wallet. But the fact is that when you deposit euros, even if we have that e-money license, you're entrusting the exchange with that money. So the trust issue is already there. So you're not dispelling it, you're not running it around, you're just leaving it the same. It's literally a loophole. It's a technical solution to solve a loophole, basically. So inside a loophole. That's it. That's a little bit different. Again, I'm not a fan, so I could care less. The exchanges will back, most exchanges, these guys will back anything. They have no financial experience, and even if they do, all they really want is to churn volume. And if it means that they're going to get a little more volume, they're going to take it. Because I can tell you, from a commercial standpoint, pure exchanging doesn't really make any money. These guys don't make their money on the exchanges. They make their money other ways, or the vast majority of their money. But that brings in new clients, it brings in new money. So, well, of course they're going to be okay with it. Myself, not so much. I will not list stablecoins. The only event that stablecoin will possibly be listed, if it actually was regulatory sound, like the day that, I don't know, Canada puts Canadian dollar loonies on the blockchain and has a stablecoin backed by the Canadian dollar, okay. Because that becomes basically a fiat currency in virtual form. That's different. But anyway, I could rant about that forever. Number 10 on our list of 10. DX Exchange is fully EU regulated. I'm going to click on this one because I clicked on DX Exchange a while back. They had the same licenses we did in Tallinn, in Estonia. And I don't think they have any new licenses. So it's not, if that's the case, and let me check first because I don't want to say anything before I check. Give me a moment. I'm opening up their website. Now, I haven't met these guys. I don't really know their backgrounds. I'm not going to read it. Because I hate to say this, but it's not something that I care about right now to read it. Plus, I'm here with you, and I'd rather spend my time with you guys. So yes, they have the FIU licenses that we have. So those FIU licenses, as we have our local license, they're local to Estonia. They do not apply EU-wide. That means they are not fully EU regulated, which is a lie. And either they don't understand that they're not fully EU regulated, which is a bad thing, or they're lying, which is also a bad thing. And yeah, so they're in Tallinn. Great for them. I guess they are a competitor on one of our many services. Good. We can probably work together if they are of the same, let's say, mind that we are, and they're looking for more regulation, and they actually maybe have some. Maybe there's some ways we can cooperate. Great. But they're not fully EU regulated. That's a misnomer, and at worst, at least it's a misnomer. At worst, it's a flat-out lie. I'm going to move on to the Reddit questions. So we have Matt's a boss coming in. Number one, hi Matt, how are you? Can you give a clear breakdown of what exactly the Q3 deadline entails? I thought public beta was the end of Q3. Now people are saying in the Telegram it is the end of Q3 plus 3 months. Okay, so we had a bit of a, I don't know, channel issue here. We're on different channels. I saw a guy on Reddit that I've never heard of. Actually, it doesn't work for us for sure. Basically answering people's questions and giving wrong information, and then different information on Telegram. So yeah, we're in the process of kind of wrangling this and making sure there's a clear message that everybody can just copy and paste, so nobody is jumping around with nonsense on their lips. The point is that Q3. So from a technical standpoint, live, meaning live money, and paper trading is the same. There is absolutely no difference. It entails the same APIs, the same work, the same GUI, the same infrastructure. It still has to communicate through Fix and get pricing through a bot. It's not through a liquidity provider, but from a tech side, there is absolutely no difference. So from the tech standpoint, end of Q3 is in open beta. Open beta meaning that we will eventually allow everybody into this beta. We are allowing more people into the beta on Monday from our closed beta group. By the end of September, we will have a fully open beta. It is still paper trading. Why is it paper trading? Well, regulations, unfortunately, and how regulators are viewing our activities have changed over the past few months. We've always talked about possibly going into live trade. Well, not always, but since the last months, we've talked about going into live trading by the end of Q3. Live trading, I don't want to do just live crypto trading. It doesn't. Whether we do that for a month or two, I could care less, and I'll tell you why. That's not the goal of this business. It's not the goal just to allow crypto trading. I know it would appease lots of people on Telegram, and that's great, and I love to appease the people on Telegram. I have nightmares about not appeasing people on Telegram, but it's not our first goal. From a business standpoint, from a commercial side, it's not the first goal. It is a goal, and it is something that we're diligent about. We want to make work. But it's not the first goal. So we need to look at many different factors, not just appeasing people on Telegram, unfortunately. So the licensing needs to come into effect for us to be able to do our full business. And I actually saw a post on Telegram, somebody saying, like, you're taking our money and getting licenses. Why don't you just launch a product? I didn't respond to it, and I'll tell you why. My brain went to jello when I heard it. Like when I hear stupid comments, like really stupid comments, my brain just goes to mush, and I can't even respond to them. It's like I don't even know how to phrase my response, because at the end of the day, if we don't have the licensing to do what we're doing, we can't launch the product. You can talk about Binance and BitMEX and all these guys all you want, but again, what they're doing in the jurisdiction they're doing it in, well, Binance is in Malta, which whatever. Well, I'm not even going to talk about Malta, but Binance wasn't in Malta for quite some time, and BitMEX, I believe, is in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere in Asia. So the point is that, to answer your question before I go off on another tangent, is that end of Q3, open beta, and then between Q3, end of Q3, and end of Q4, we will go through that full beta process, which people will actually call a beta. We will go through contests and things like that. We will get surveys and data from thousands of people, and we will start to launch pieces of the package, pieces of the infrastructure live. And that's going to last through Q4, which I have seen people say 2019 live, fully live to the public. Yeah, probably right into 2019. Now, if the beta process takes less time, which it could, it's taken longer than we've expected on this side because we revamped a lot of things we were doing, and we now have 3 different interfaces where we never planned to have 3 different interfaces. It took us more time to basically adapt our internal strategy and how we were dealing with different developers and things like that. So it took more time. But it won't take more time in the future because those things are done. Once something is done, it's done. And so you still have new challenges, but those old challenges are done. So they're not going to be there in the future. So what kind of progress there is on the back end? Is it ready to go or still in early stages? There's lots of progress. There's lots of progress on the back end. The back end itself, we're right now going into, as far as order types, market orders and limit orders are in. We're now going through FOK and IOC are pretty much in. And we're going into more complex order types like OCO, being able to combine GTC orders with other types of orders. We're looking at something like an iceberg order, basically a synthetic iceberg order, which is kind of like a GTC order combined with like a limit IOC order, so that essentially you put an order in for 50 Bitcoin and it can only fill 2. It's going to fill 2, then another 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7. As it moves down, you can add a range on that limit order eventually, which would mean a true iceberg order, but synthetically created between 2 order types. Because I think it's just easier to explain to some. Iceberg order can get a little complex, but even from a trader aspect, some guys don't know what an iceberg order is. But most traders are going to know what a GTC and what a limit IOC is. So it's just a combination of the two. So there's lots of progress. You got to understand now, there's development progress and there's operational regulatory process. We need them both to come to a head to push this thing out fully. And I know people think that we should push out pieces live or something like that, and why wait for the regulation? Nobody else did, but we didn't launch a year ago, and a year ago we may be able to take that risk, but we're the regulation guys. We've been to see regulators, we've sat down with them. I got a phone call from the Ministry of Finance here in Estonia, and we got an email from them today asking us politely that when we have our frameworks ready for how we believe that crypto can be better regulated in Estonia, to please provide them to them. So look, other exchanges don't do that. We're actively involved in this, so we cannot talk one thing to the regulator, get them to accept us. Look, the only reason we have a bank account is because we're ready to take on regulation. If we weren't, we wouldn't have a bank account. We wouldn't have the accounts we have. We wouldn't have any of the relationships we have. We can't just go two-faced then and say one thing to the regulator and one thing to the bank and then go, screw this, we want to go crypto trading only for a few months or a month or 5, whatever, because everybody wants us to launch this thing. So we need to make sure we have to be on solid ground, and solid ground means both sides need to come together, and then we launch. Okay, number 2 on my Reddit lists, we have Jerempire. It's like vampire and Jeremy mixed together, maybe. So Jeremy the Vampire. Kevin, any plans to integrate CoinMetro with Ripple's X-Rapid program? We've been in talks about it. So, and I mentioned that AMAs ago, long time ago. X-Rapid is scheduled to go live at the end of 2018. I believe the amount of daily volume of X-Rapid would be help exchanges. I'm going to see if instead of the volume of exchanges being due to bull bear market cycle with retail investors who use X-Rapid will need to receive money 365 days of the year. Certain payment providers, banks save 40-70% of their cross-border costs. CEO of Ripple already stated, I've publicly stated that by the end of the year, I have confidence major banks will use X-Rapid. Yeah, so I've been in talks with Miguel Villas, who is their VP of Business Development for quite some time. We are looking at becoming an X-Rapid partner, possibly for Euro-based payments. We will definitely have XRP crosses, probably from day one. We have the liquidity in place. We have 2 liquidity providers in place specifically for Ripple crosses. Integration, I don't think will be a problem. So I expect to have that by day 1 live as well. So yes, I know what the space thinks of Ripple, but I also know what Ripple means for liquidity. And you're right. Payment processing would push a lot of liquidity through our platform. It also provides an additional revenue stream for us. We have Euro onboarding for client funds. The only other EU-based company that has that, I believe, is Kraken. Everybody else uses third-party providers, and even Kraken at this point doesn't use retail banks, which means that the ability for them to expand this to a wider audience is difficult. So I do think we can be a prime partner in Europe, probably to start off with the Baltics as a test case, and then move into the rest of Europe. And it's something that we're in discussion with, and we have been actually for months. So it wouldn't be something maybe we advertise so boldly on the website, but it is something that I think can provide a good revenue stream for us. We can help Ripple, and we can provide some underlying liquidity to a lot of the crosses that exist inside. And we can also provide synthetic liquidity from Ripple crosses into non-Ripple crosses. So you can take, let's say, like Ripple Bitcoin and then take Ripple USD. And then on the backside, be providing Bitcoin USD liquidity between those two. And that's big. That's huge. I'm not saying that's in development right now, but it's in the head. It's in my head. It's in Salvatore, our CTO's head for sure. We both kind of think alike when it comes to these things. So the industry needs liquidity. Ripple has a ton of liquidity, so why not use it? Forrest, GGG, number 3 on my list, Ripple from Reddit. Kevin, you said we're on track to the end of Q3. After that, we have open beta for everyone. What does it mean? I just explained that. So open beta is beta. It's paper trading. From a technological standpoint, there's no difference between paper trading and live trading. Absolutely none. There's no difference. From a financial risk, blah, 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 there's a difference, obviously. From a pure technical-driven standpoint, there's no risk. So we will be ready for live when we launch paper trading from a technical standpoint. We need to make sure that we're ready, though, on the operational, mainly regulatory, legal side. And that right now is a little more murky than the dev side because things have happened in the last weeks, months, whatever, that make it a bit more murky. But it's not that murky. Don't get me wrong. It's not a huge delay factor, but it will be, the Q3 open beta will be paper trading. And then we will start, basically once we do that paper trading, like I said, we go through the beta, we start getting data. As we see how that data rolls in, we start to, maybe Simplex goes live. Simplex goes live. Once we've seen that there's no bugs and it's running good, then Intermediate goes live, then Trade goes live. And then by that point, we're ready to go live on the entire thing, open to the public. And that may be faster than the end of Q4. But the way we're kind of structuring this now is around quarters. So it gives us 3 months in order to go through that process. Timmerman, in a voice message, Robin Timmerman, sorry, which I now know means carpenter. And actually, Robin, I wanted to discuss this because somebody mentioned, I think Julia from our team had seen a message in Telegram. I was trying to make a joke. It was voice message. I was being sarcastic a little bit about, somebody had said that you weren't as enthusiastic as you were, and then I came back and said something around the lines of that you were making up having a daughter. I obviously know you have a daughter, but I think I came in a little bit too late, so it was out of context, but that was the context of the joke, so just in case you missed that one. In a voice message a few days ago, you mentioned that you will be rewards for XCM holders. Why do you want to incentivize holding? Day traders, scalpers are an exchange's best friend, not holders who never pay any fee. I get that holding XCM, reducing the circulating supply, which should increase the price and give us holders love, but the value of XCM token means nothing for the value of usability of the platform itself. If I have to pay €100 in fees, doesn't it matter if I paid 1,000 or 10 XCM, it's still $100. 100 euros in fees. Do you personally have an XCM target and price in mind? And since XCM won't be released during the live beta, does that mean there will be no trading fees during that period? Okay, so why do I want to incentivize holding? So it's partially to incentivize holding, but that's not really the main point. The main point is that when people hold, it helps reduce supply. You have to remember that regardless, every transaction someone does, they can come in and buy XCM, but the only reason they would buy XCM would be and hold it, besides speculative reason, would be because they want to get discounts. So they do it to get the discounts, and that means they're going to trade. Why would you get a discount if you weren't going to trade? The discount is around trading. So they're going to trade. They might not trade XCM pairs, but every single fee that they trade is going to get converted into XCM. So they're still creating XCM trading. So I think it should, over time, obviously you're right. If the fee is, €1 or €100, whatever, it just gets divisible between the XCM token. So it could be one token, or it could be 0.000 tokens, or it could be 1,000 tokens. It makes no difference to the person actually paying. But of course, everybody that holds the XCM token would like to see some would love to see appreciation, right? So it should, in the long run, help to help appreciate the token value. But it really is about, look, initially, we have a lot of things that we're offering that nobody offers. Paying makers, one. The ability people do offer discounts, for sure. An ambassador program that we're crafting that's going to be a bit different than everyone else. But just the maker fee should get them in the door. But if we can incentivize them a bit more to stay by saying, you'll get the maker fee, but also when you actually have to trade and do market orders, we're going to give you a bit more discount if you buy some XCM and hold it. So we get some XCM off the table. It reduces a bit the supply. Which is helpful, and then we're still going to see XCM transactions on every transaction they do. So yeah, plus you have to remember that we're going to have to at some point be exchanging XCM as well. So if we can get people to hold it to trade it, we can offset the amount we're going to need to sell at some point in order, or liquidate at some point in order to be able to fund the company. So it really is a mechanism to try to create, inflows and outflows of XCM and try to neutralize a bit the effect overall of the outflows that we will eventually have versus the inflows of clients. Do I have a target price? Not really. I don't have a target price, to be honest. But I do think that my first major target will be €1. That's a major target. We get it to €1. It basically means that it gives us a certain market cap, obviously, but it gives us a market cap that's big enough to be able to do a bit more things with our own liquidity. So since XCM won't be released on live beta. Initially, we for the first month or so, there probably won't be any fees. That's for sure. We haven't really defined exactly how long that's going to last, but there probably won't be fees because we could still charge fees. It just wouldn't be charged in XCM or converted to XCM, but that would it goes against kind of the whole meaning of having a utility token. So we would probably not institute fees, at least initially, which means there'd be no maker bonuses either. So you have to kind of try to weigh those two and see how it works. But when we get to live, because we have this now quarter gap where we're going to be able to test and push things out live slowly, I would assume when we go, or the goal when we go fully live is to actually have XCM Turtle before that happens. So this shouldn't really be an issue. We have a little more of Rahman. There are a lot of job positions of CoinMetro. It's hard to fill them. Haven't read all of them, but it seems they're long positions. You guys are in this for a long haul after all. Would it be an idea to create short-term freelance and remote jobs? We have freelance opportunities as well. They're not evidently listed on the website. You're right, there's a lot of job postings. Some of those postings aren't things we need today. We might only need them in 6 months, a year, 3 months, 1 month, whatever, or it depends on the hiring of somebody else prior. The point is that we want to get the word out there. We want people with nice resumes to come to us. We want to see what's out there. We want to, we basically want to see what the market looks like, both locally, regionally, and around the world. So last one for the week, I promise. In this discussion on Telegram earlier today, it was stated that delays are partially to ensure compliance with the changes in RegTech. Can you tell a bit more about what are the biggest regulatory changes you need to adapt in the course of this year? Or maybe about the future changes you predict that will drastically impact on the finance of crypto. So the main thing is that regulators initially were like, do what you want because it's crypto. Now they're starting to realize that lots of the pieces of the puzzle, like accepting fiat, like fiat wallets, already apply to other licensing. And while there hasn't been nothing's been written down, we've talked to many different regulators around the world, and and the regulator's never going to tell you need a license. That's not what they do. They're going to tell you, if you think you need a license, apply for one. And we'll look at it and see its merit. And if we agree, we will process it. And if you make it, we'll give you the license. If not, well, you don't get one. So when you're never going to ask a regulator, do we need a license? They're going to say, well, what do you think? Because you should know. From a financial standpoint, you should know if you need a license. If you don't know, you're in the wrong business. And I know that, for instance, ETCF, when we curate a basket, that's portfolio management. It's the FSA may not, or the FCA in the UK may not come after us today if we do it, because it's a little bit murky, but they will rather quickly and eventually, depending on our growth. If we hold euro wallets next to crypto, even if we're just exchanging rapidly between the two assets, we need an EMI license. If we're doing payment processing, meaning that someone can take their euros and send it to account not directly in their name, like a debit card that might be a sub-account under a corporate name, you need a payment institution or an e-money license. So there's, from a trading perspective, when you're allowing trading against fiat pairs, you have a currency involved, which is currency trading. So that entails some other licensing. Now, I'm not saying other players don't do it. Kraken does it, Bitstamp does it, etc. Bitstamp does have a license in the EU. The license they have is, I think, something along the lines of asset management, which doesn't really apply at all. It's got them through till now, but it probably won't get them through the future. I don't like to take regulatory risks. You may be able to make some money right now for a year or two, and that's great, and maybe a lot of money, and that's great. Lots of money, making lots of money for a company, that's all well and good. You can pop your champagne bottles and everything. But I like to look at the longer term, and I don't like what 5 years from now looks like if we start operating now without a license, when the regulator knows we know that we probably need one. So it's not so much. What's changed is the tone. The tone initially was, we don't think we're going to need to regulate that. Do what you want. Now it's like, yeah, we're waiting on some guidelines and frameworks, and if you could provide those to us, that'd be great. What exactly are you doing? There's a bit more of a debate. It's starting to be, the risk is starting to get higher. I'm not saying we're going to wait long periods of time to, there is a commercial aspect to this as well. I'm not going to wait a year for a regulator to come out with a license that we need. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to wait even 6 months. I'm not going to wait 3 months. But I do know some licenses we can attack right now that'll take us X amount of time to procure, and it makes sense for us to have that license. Now, if it takes longer than what we expect, then yeah, we may have to cut back a little bit on what we're going to offer for day one. But we need to make sure everything we're going to offer is ready. And I'd rather be able to offer, to go into market, when you first get into market is when we're going to get our initial, let's say, hype cycle when we're open. And I don't want to go out and say, yeah, we're crypto to crypto now, but we're going to be crypto to fiat tomorrow or the next day. Everybody else is crypto to crypto. Why the hell would somebody move from one place to another? It limits it. Even some people are already crypto to fiat, but not where we are, not with retail banks, not with pricing structure, not with the maker fees. We need to be able to attack initially with a lot, if not all, a lot of these different aspects. If not, we're going to limit our initial push into the market, and I'd rather not do that. CoinMetro fan, last question on Reddit. Hi, Kevin. Is CoinMetro margin trading likely to use standardized lot sizes for volume and or pips to measure price movements like in Forex? Just had this discussion today with our CTO, actually. I think we should. I think we should because what's going to happen is, and I've said this before, a true trader, there are no true traders in crypto yet. And if you're sitting there thinking you're a trader, I'm sorry, I'm offending you, but true traders don't exist yet in the crypto market. A trader doesn't want to trade one asset type. And no professional trader says, I'm a oil trader. I don't trade anything else but oil. They might say that, but that just doesn't happen. Everybody wants multi-asset. They need it because you need to be able to diversify your risk. You need to be able to diversify your portfolio. You need to be able to have correlating pairs that you can offset risk to, etc. So very quickly, you're going to start to see multi-asset platforms provide deliverable crypto. And that's going to happen over the next year or so. And FXPig can obviously play a role in that to make sure that we have a multi-asset platform. It'll be very difficult if you're like, well, if you want to trade crypto, you got to do it here, and this is how the pricing works, and then derivatives work like this, CFDs work like that, FX works like this. That's just a mess. They should all work generally the same way when it comes to pricing. So I do think there will be a pip or cent or point type pricing module around margin trading, and price movements will be similar to Forex. Yes, there will be a specific price peg to each movement on leverage trading. It just makes sense. It makes sense because it's going to be easier for traders to adapt, and it's going to be easy for a trader to trade across multiple assets without having to rethink their sizing and their risk based on whatever, every single individual asset having a different pricing structure. Okay, guys, as far as the update this week, give me a second while I jump into see what kind of information I got. So from a development standpoint, we've been making progress on the intermediate exchange, making progress on the simplex exchange. The Trello boards for both of those have been drastically reduced. On the trade side, we're looking at another 10 days to get the first trade iteration out. On Monday, we're going to open up the beta testing, I think, to 2,000 people, or 2,000 more people, something like that. So on Monday, people will start to get emails so they can access the beta as well. We're going to have some more refined surveys so we can collect that data. And we'll continue to work on that trade interface after we get the feedback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On an operational standpoint, couple setbacks here or there on a few things when it comes to the regulatory side. Not huge setbacks, but setbacks nonetheless. Means we need to spend a bit more money than we thought we would. Well, things happen. But not so much of a huge, doesn't really do much to our overall timelines. Except we may have to limit some of the on and off ramps that we were planning to have from day one. But we'll see. It may change tomorrow. I have a meeting, scheduling a meeting now in London for the week, not this coming week, but next week, to discuss, sit down, basically have a roundtable discussion with powers that be to see how we can possibly make it work a little more streamlined. So after that, there's been some partnership discussions between a few different entities. Those are continuing. I know I was going to have a bit more information, but I got to tell you guys, these last few weeks have been quite hectic. Lots of calls, lots of outside of the office meetings. that ran super late. I had a meeting the other day till 1 a.m. Had to bring my 7-year-old with me, so she was sitting at the meeting till 1 a.m. with me. She had some good insight, so we took some notes. Just after I hang up here, I have 2 or 3 meetings I'm going to go to after this. I don't know what time I'll be making it back. So yeah, lots of things going on. So I didn't really have time to take a lot of notes this week, unfortunately. But there is progress on all fronts, progress on the marketing front, progress on the support front. Ukraine is moving along as far as support goes. We're making a few adjustments when it comes to Mexico. The Mexico operational phase is moving along. We're getting the paperwork settled in Mexico, so we're pushing there for our Latin America outreach. We have I've been talking to a few larger projects about initial listings. I'm thinking about now starting to build out our business development team, so that's going to be something I'm going to focus on over the next couple of weeks. And there's a few other things that are happening. We have a head of legal that we just gave an offer to that's going to start next week as well, based out of London. That's going to allow us to streamline a lot of the legal process and documentation drafting, which we're going to need to do, and we need to draft a lot of it. We've been drafting a lot of it, but this is really going to reduce cost, and it's going to reduce time. So we're going to be able to draft documentation much faster internally, which will help us on the regulatory side, which is going to help us push out our products faster. Anyway, I'm going to jump into the live questions so that we can get moving here and see what Matt on YouTube asking if we could see a mock-up of the exchange, the new trade view. Yeah, shortly. I think sometime towards end of next week, we'll push some mock-ups out because I was told about 2 days ago we needed 10 days to get it functional. So when it goes to HTML, when it gets pushed to HTML or React, which will probably be sometime between Monday and Wednesday, hopefully, then we can send out a mock-up because the mock-up essentially will be ready. Right now, we're still making adjustments to the mock-up before it actually goes into, let's say, the next step, which is HTML, and then into React. Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to jump into Facebook because there's a few more questions there, and this type font here is massive, so I need to go to Facebook to be able to see what these questions are. 1 second. Okay, so turn the mic up a bit. Sorry, guys. Well, I was far away from the mic. It's not because that was probably posted a while ago, so I apologize. I missed it. How can I get into the CM beta testing? Well, Kauchi, the way we picked these 2,000 people was based on several factors, including people who completed surveys, people who have open emails, people who have been contributing. I think it has something to do with the minimum contribution as well, and it's all kind of tied into a formula. So there's 2,000. Whether you're in the 2,000 or not, we're gonna move in more people probably on a weekly to 10-day every 10 days every week. So if you're not in there, you'll probably be in the next wave. So don't worry about it too much. But you can always try to send an email to us and ask. And you might get your wish granted. So, and Gerardo on Facebook, just to clarify, when will XCM be tradable? So, I still can't give you a concrete date on that because that really it's going to be sometime between. So by the end of Q3, it won't be. By September 31st, it's not going to be tradable. By September 30th, it's not going to be tradable. However, sometime between the beginning of Q4 and the end of Q4, as we push out live services, it will be tradable. So it could happen within that first month, the second month, or the third month. That we're going to have a much better definition of when that's going to happen right from the beginning of Q4, because we will see the beta feedback, we will see what type of bugs are flowing in, what types of things we need to change, and we'll much better be able to give a pinpoint date, but it will be within that Q4 timeframe. Geraldo, yeah, Salvatore. Well, Salvatore, I would say at this point it doesn't make sense to bring him in. He's not here physically, so we'd have to patch him in from either. If I think he's in Italy right now, or Malta. He might even be in Malta, to be honest. I don't remember. But it doesn't make sense. He's just too busy right now. I have to be honest. I'm not. I mean, I'm a busy man myself, but my job really is talking. So not an extra hour of talking about things. This is my job. So. That's fine, but I think if we pull him off now, it's not going to help, even for an hour, to be honest. But yes, in the near future, once we get to the point where we've hired a few extra devs, which we're in the process of doing, and he's able to pull himself away a bit more, yes, he definitely will. Look, I'm not going to be the only face you see here going forward. Right now, it's me because, well, it's me, and everybody else has other things they need to do, and we're kind of in press mode here. We're trying to get things done. But our COO, our CTO, our CCO, they will all end up joining us at some point, and eventually we'll probably morph this into a bit more of a podcast. And when that happens, we will have guests every week, whether they're internal guests, external guests, etc., clients, whatever. Let me see if we have something else here on the YouTube side. No, nothing else. Okay. Okay, guys. So, anything else from the live questions before we call it a day here? We're about 2 minutes out from 6, so relatively close to the hour cutoff. Oh, I see. I do. Where is that question coming from? Because I don't see it here. Oh, here we go. DX has another license. The second is service for fiat. Well, actually, that's not their license. That's through a secondary company. So that's actually not their license. And it's not crypto related in any aspect. So their main activities are not licensed EU-wide. That doesn't change. So yeah. It doesn't change a thing. They're still not licensed EU-wide for their main activity, which is a crypto exchange. They have a license, yep, right, by the SciSec, you're right, but it's not their license, it's of a second company. Whether that company is actually inside their group of companies or it's just an agent, we don't know, or I don't know. I haven't dug that deep, to be honest. But yeah, they're still not licensed EU-wide for some of their activities, which I would say would be their main activity, which would be operating an exchange platform for crypto. Kevin, what do you think about Binance launching their version? Yeah, I saw that. I thought maybe, Binance must be watching our AMAs. So let's see what other ideas we can give Binance, right? Why not? Looks like they need some help over there. I think it's natural progression, right? I think a lot of people got into this, and Binance, I'm sure, is starting to see, they don't make money on exchanges. I've already said that a million times. It's not where they make their money. They're probably starting to see a little bit of a decline or a climax or a plateauing of their usership, and they need to move into newbies now. And well, what do you do to move into newbies? You do education. The fact that we talked about doing it or we're going to do it it's because we're the smartest people in the world. It's because, well, look at the business model, look at FX, look at stocks, look at whatever. Almost every big player that deals with retail has some type of education. And education is becoming quite a big talking point in many different industries. So I think it makes sense that they're doing it. I don't know if they got the idea from us. I say that kind of jokingly. They probably didn't. I'm sure they got it from somebody else. But we didn't just make the idea out of air either. It's, again, it depends on how they do it. Let's see how they do it. Let's see who does it better. Our goal obviously is to do it better, is to make sure that we really cover topics that help people, but not only that drive volume, because we're a business. We want to see the volume, but we really do want to help people and get people involved and create a larger market for everybody, not just for us. So. Okay, guys, any other questions before I call it a day here? Well, I don't call it a day, but we call it a day here on the AMA before I head off to my other meetings and other places I'm going to need to talk for a couple hours at the end. Okay, guys, I don't see any other questions coming in. So as usual, I'm going to wish you guys to have a nice weekend. I'm going to thank you guys for coming by. See a lot of the same faces, which is nice. Thanks for the Reddit questions. Please, guys, get some more Reddit questions up there. Questions are usually good. We need some more. Let's get some variety. The news topics were good this week. We had a little more than we usually do, so good on that. I do think that... Oh. I got Geraldo coming up saying he typed one. Is that a question? I guess, was that the Binance? That was the Academy question. At least that's what it looks like. I think I answered that one. So anyway, guys, have a great weekend. Spend some time with your family, friends, loved ones, whatever. Try to stop thinking about the Ethereum price and whether that ETF is going to make you a Bitcoin billionaire again or whatever nonsense. And go live your life a little bit. Get away from a screen. go walk outside or something. And thanks for coming by. I'll see you guys next week, next Friday. Please get those questions rolling in as soon as you can. Let's get some good ones in there. Oh, wait a minute. We do have a question. What do you think about Nauticus? Have no idea what Nauticus is, actually, so can't make a comment on it. Get it to Reddit, Geraldo, for next week, or come back in here and ask it. Give me a link. Put a link in Reddit so I can actually maybe look at it, and I'll give you my sincere opinion on what I think about it. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day, weekend. See you guys on Friday. I will try to get in Telegram and chat you guys up a bit sometime over the weekend. Cheers.